Good Times, one of the most iconic sitcoms of the 70s, was beloved for its portrayal of an African-American family living in a Chicago housing project. However, the show's run was abruptly cut short after a single controversial episode that led to its cancellation. What exactly happened in that infamous scene that led to such a dramatic turn of events? How did it challenge the boundaries of what was considered acceptable on television at the time? Stay tuned and subscribe as we uncover the controversial scene that took Good Times off the air for good. Good Times is a popular American television show that was on air from February 8, 1974 to August 1, 1979. The show aired for a total of 6 seasons on the CBS network. It was a sitcom, which means it was a funny show that featured a regular cast of characters and was filmed in front of a live studio audience, making it a type of comedy. The show was created by Eric Monty and Mike Evans, who are both important figures in the world of television. The show's development and production were overseen by Norman Lear, a well-known producer and creator of many groundbreaking television shows. Good Times was special for many reasons, but one of the most significant was that it was the first sitcom on television to show an African-American family with both a mother and father living together. This was an important step forward in television representation, as it helped showcase African-American life and experiences in a positive and relatable way. The show was a spin-off of another popular television show called Maude, which itself was a spin-off of a very famous show called All in the Family. In simple terms, a spin-off is when a show is created based on characters or concepts from another show. So, Good Times was connected to these other shows, but it told its own unique story about an African-American family living in Chicago. The show followed the lives of the Evans family, who lived in a poor neighborhood but were rich in love and support for each other. The main characters included James Evans, Sr., played by John Amos, the father who worked hard to provide for his family, Florida Evans, played by Esther Rawl, the strong and caring mother, and their children, JJ, played by Jimmy Walker, Thelma, played by Bernadette Stanis, and Michael, played by Ralph Carter. Each character brought something unique to the show, and their interactions with each other were funny, heartwarming, and often relatable to viewers. Good Times was created with the idea of being a show that dealt with serious issues in a funny way. The creators, along with the main stars Esther Rawl and John Amos, had the hope that Good Times would not only entertain, but also offer meaningful content. They wanted to bring real-life situations into the show, like the struggles of living in a poor neighborhood, but still keep it light and funny so viewers could laugh while still reflecting on these important issues. It was JJ, James Evans, Jr., the son of the family, who became the star of the show. JJ was played by Jimmy Walker, and his character quickly captured the audience's attention. JJ was funny, energetic, and full of optimism. He was often the comic relief of the show, getting into silly situations and making people laugh. One of his most famous characteristics was his frequent use of the word dynamite. He would shout it with excitement, often saying "Kid Dynamite" as part of his funny antics. This catchphrase became so popular that it made JJ the breakout character of the show. The phrase dynamite wasn't something Walker came up with on his own. It was suggested by the show's director, John Rich. Rich thought that Jimmy Walker should say this line in every episode, and so he did. The first time JJ said it was in the second episode of the first season, titled Black Jesus. At the end of that episode, Jimmy Walker delivered the phrase, and it stuck. It became so iconic that it was included in TV Land's The 100 Greatest TV Quotes and Catchphrases special, which celebrates famous lines from TV shows. The dynamite catchphrase became a big part of JJ's character, and it helped him stand out. Every time JJ said it, it was a moment that the audience could look forward to, and it added to the fun, lighthearted nature of the show. Jimmy Walker's energy and the line itself became one of the most memorable aspects of Good Times, helping to make it a hit with viewers. While Good Times was originally intended to have a balance of humor and serious issues, it was JJ's comedic role that made the show more popular. His dynamite line turned into a symbol of his fun, carefree attitude, and it helped him become a favorite among fans. The character of JJ was more than just a comic figure. He was someone who brought laughter into the lives of the Evans family and the audience, while also showing that even in difficult times, a little bit of humor could help make life more bearable. As Good Times progressed through its second and third seasons, the show's direction began to change in a way that frustrated its main stars, Esther Rawl and John Amos. They became increasingly unhappy with how their characters were being portrayed and, in particular, with how JJ, played by Jimmy Walker, was evolving. At first, Good Times was meant to be a show about a strong, loving African-American family facing real-world issues, but over time, the writers started focusing more on JJ's silly antics, which Rawl and Amos felt were undermining the show's original vision. JJ's character, who was meant to be a fun and energetic son, became more exaggerated and, in the eyes of Rawl and Amos, more of a fool. JJ was constantly getting into ridiculous situations and was often portrayed as lacking common sense, not working, and not being very smart. This portrayal started to feel stereotypical to Rawl and Amos. They believed that the character's behavior was no longer just harmless comedy, but was instead reinforcing negative stereotypes about African Americans, particularly young Black men. In a 1975 interview with Ebony magazine, Esther Rawl, who played Florida Evans, openly criticized the direction the show was taking. She felt that JJ was being made more stupid as the show went on, and that his role was being expanded at the expense of the other characters, especially her own. Rawl's concern was that JJ's foolish behavior and lack of intelligence were becoming the focal point of the show, rather than the positive messages about family and perseverance that were initially meant to shine through. She felt that the show's portrayal of JJ was sending a negative message to viewers about Black youth, especially young men, as the character was seen as lazy, uneducated, and uninterested in doing anything meaningful with his life. John Amos, who played the father James Evans, also had strong opinions about how JJ was being written. While he didn't speak out as publicly as Rawl, Amos shared similar concerns. He felt that the writers were choosing to focus on JJ's catchphrase, "Dynamite," and his silly behavior rather than writing meaningful dialogue or storylines for the show. Amos believed that by making JJ act foolishly, they were avoiding more important or serious issues that the family could face. He felt that the writers were turning JJ into a buffoon simply to fill time with jokes and slapstick humor, rather than using him to address more important matters or develop his character in a deeper way. Amos also expressed that the writers were more interested in having JJ wear funny costumes or say his famous catchphrase rather than giving him meaningful actions or words. He used the example of the writers wanting JJ to wear a chicken hat and prance around saying, "Dynamite," to show how they were more focused on humor that didn't contribute to the show's larger message. Amos felt this approach wasted the opportunity to tell stories that mattered and instead pushed the character into a stereotypical role that didn't reflect the real struggles and growth that people face in their lives. Both Rawl and Amos felt that the show, which had started as a way to showcase a positive African-American family, was now being reduced to a comedic spectacle, with JJ's antics taking over the plot. While the character of JJ had been beloved for his humor, Rawl and Amos wanted the show to offer more than just laughs and wanted the family dynamic to remain at the center of the story. They believed that by overemphasizing JJ's silliness, the show was missing an opportunity to portray the family as more than just a source of jokes. Their disillusionment grew as Good Times continued, and it became clear that the writers were more interested in continuing the JJ-centered humor, even at the cost of the original themes of the show. This tension between the actors and the writers reflected a larger issue in the entertainment industry at the time, where shows featuring African-American families were often limited to stereotypical portrayals or made to focus more on comedy than on serious themes. For Rawl and Amos, Good Times was a chance to change how Black families were shown on TV, but they began to feel that the show was moving away from that goal. John Amos also had concerns about how Good Times was developing, especially when it came to the emphasis on JJ's character. He felt that too much attention was being given to JJ and his silly antics, particularly his famous catchphrase, "Dynamite," and his over-the-top, buffoonish behavior. Amos believed that this focus on JJ was overshadowing the potential of the other characters, especially the two younger Evans children, who also had interesting and ambitious storylines. In an interview with the Television Academy Foundation in 2014, Amos shared his frustration with the direction the show was taking. He felt that the writers were spending too much time on JJ's comedic antics, such as wearing a chicken hat and repeating his catchphrase over and over. Amos believed that more emphasis could have been placed on his two other children, who had big dreams and goals. One of them, Michael Evans, played by Ralph Carter, was portrayed as a smart, ambitious young man who aspired to become a Supreme Court justice. The other, Thelma Evans, played by Bernadette Stanis, dreamed of becoming a surgeon. These were important, inspiring goals for the characters, and Amos felt they should have been explored more in the show. Instead of focusing on these meaningful aspirations, the writers continued to give JJ the spotlight. Amos believed that they could have created more compelling stories around Michael and Thelma, but that never happened. He thought that the show was missing out on the chance to highlight positive, ambitious role models for young viewers. Amos was frustrated because he believed these storylines could have added depth to the show and made it more meaningful. Amos also admitted that he wasn't always the most diplomatic person when it came to expressing his dissatisfaction with the show's direction. He said that his frustration led to tensions with the producers, and at one point, the situation became so heated that they considered writing his character off the show. Amos recalled that the producers even suggested killing off his character, James Evans, in order to move on from the issues. This decision was a blow to Amos, as it made him realize that he wasn't as central to the show as he had initially thought. It taught him a hard lesson about his role in the production, as well as about the way his concerns were being handled by the show's creators. Amos felt that his character, James Evans, and the larger storylines around the family were being pushed aside in favor of JJ's more superficial comedic role. The show, which started with a focus on portraying a strong, loving family, was increasingly centered around JJ's antics, which left little room for other important themes or characters. This situation caused Amos to feel less valued, especially in comparison to how the character of JJ was treated. He came to realize that his character, and even his personal opinions, were not as important in the grand scheme of the show as he had once believed. While Amos wanted Good Times to be more than just a comedy show filled with jokes and catchphrases, the producers seemed to prefer the humor-driven direction. Unfortunately, this clash of ideas led to a strained relationship between Amos and the show's creators, contributing to his eventual departure from the series. John Amos's departure from Good Times was initially explained by the producers as his desire to pursue a career in films. However, in a 1976 interview, Amos admitted the real reason was that Norman Lear, the show's creator, had called him and informed him that his contract option was not going to be renewed. Amos bluntly described this as the same thing as being fired. He felt that the decision to let him go was not because of anything he had done wrong, but because the producers wanted to move the show in a different direction. The decision to write off Amos's character, James Evans, was made quickly, and instead of recasting the role, the writers chose to kill off the character in the two-part Season 4 premiere, titled The Big Move. In this storyline, Florida, played by Esther Rall, finds out that her husband, James, has died in a car accident while he was in Mississippi. He had been setting up a new business opportunity at an auto repair shop, a venture that would have allowed the Evans family to move out of the ghetto and into a better life. His death was a significant turning point in the show, and it deeply affected Florida and the rest of the family. This major change left a noticeable gap in the family dynamic, as James Evans had been an important part of the show, providing strength and stability to the family. By the end of Season 4, Esther Rall, who played Florida Evans, also became unhappy with the direction of the show. Rall had expressed her frustrations with how the show was focusing too much on JJ's silly antics and not enough on the serious themes she wanted to explore. She was particularly disappointed by how the show had sidelined her character and her storyline, just as it had done with John Amos's character. Feeling that the show was no longer aligning with her values, Raul decided to leave Good Times. In the two-part season finale titled Love Has a Spot on His Lung, Florida gets engaged to a man named Carl Dixon, played by Moses Gunn, whom she began dating toward the end of season 4. This was a way to give Florida a new romantic direction, as she had been widowed after James's death. In the season 5 premiere, titled The Evans Get Involved Part 1, it is revealed that Florida and Carl have gotten married off-screen and moved to Arizona for Carl's health. The move was a way to explain her absence from the show and provide closure for her character's storyline. With both Amos and Raul gone, the show lost 2 of its central characters. As a result, the show needed to adjust, and it was decided that Janet Dubois, who played Willona Woods, would step into a more prominent role. Willona, who had been a neighbor and close friend of the Evans family, began to take on more responsibility, checking in on the Evans children, who were now living alone. At the start of the 5th season, Good Times began to lose viewers. The producers and the audience noticed that without Esther Rawl, who played Florida Evans, the show had lost its main source of warmth and unity. Florida had been the heart of the show, and without her, it was harder for the audience to connect with the family. Viewers missed the balance and wisdom she brought to the series. The ratings started to drop, and it became clear that something needed to change if the show was going to survive. By the time season 6 was about to begin, CBS and the producers knew they had to do something drastic to bring viewers back. Steve Mills, the vice president of CBS programming at the time, explained that without the strong parental figures, like Florida, the show had started to lose its core message. The feedback from the audience was clear. They wanted the show to go back to its roots, to what made it successful in the first place. The producers, based on research and audience feedback, realized they needed to bring back the essence of the show, which was the family unit, especially the parental guidance that Florida had provided. In an effort to fix things, the producers reached out to Esther Rawl and offered her a guest role on the show. At first, Rawl was hesitant. She wasn't sure if coming back was the right choice for her or for the show. However, after negotiations, including better pay and improved scripts, she agreed to return as a regular character on the show. With Rawl's return and her request for changes to the show, including better quality of writing and a stronger focus on the family, the producers hoped the ratings would improve. However, even with Rawl's return, plus the addition of a new cast member, the ratings didn't improve as expected. The show still struggled to attract enough viewers. The chemistry between the cast was never quite the same, and the changes were not enough to bring the series back to its former popularity. Despite the efforts to fix things, Good Times was canceled during the 1978-79 season. Although Good Times ended after 6 seasons, it is still remembered fondly for its honest portrayal of an African-American family and for the important topics it tackled during its run. The legacy of the show remains significant in television history, especially for its role in breaking new ground with a portrayal of a Black family on television. Recently, Netflix announced that it is creating an animated version of Good Times, the beloved 70s sitcom about the Evans family. However, the trailer for the animated reboot has sparked a lot of criticism, especially from Black viewers. Many people are upset because they feel that the new version does not accurately represent Black life or culture. Instead, the animated show seems to rely on stereotypes and fails to capture the essence of the original show that many people loved. The new animated series focuses on a new generation of the Evans family, who are still living in Chicago and struggling with issues like poverty, racism, and classism. These are serious and important topics that were part of the original Good Times, but viewers feel that the way the new show handles these issues isn't respectful or realistic. Some people feel the animation style and the way the characters are portrayed don't reflect the real challenges Black families face, and it seems like the creators are using the name of Good Times just to attract attention, without truly understanding its significance in Black culture. The backlash suggests that the producers of the animated series may have underestimated how important Good Times is to the Black community. The original show was groundbreaking because it portrayed a Black family in a realistic, heartfelt way, showing their struggles and triumphs. It tackled serious topics with a mix of humor and heart, and many viewers saw themselves in the characters. But with the animated reboot, some fans feel like the show is just trying to cash in on the Good Times name without respecting the show's legacy. What do you think? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.